I'm Joseph Patrick, co-founder of Lamont Brothers. And in today's video, we're going to answer the question, what cabinet door is most moisture resistant? And the way we're going to do this is we're going to soak several doors in water for 24 hours. We're going to measure their thickness and examine them for any imperfections and see what door performs the very best. So let's look at our contenders. First off, we'll have this very attractive door from Bellmont Cabinets in Washington. And this is a laminate door. It's a 5-piece door. This is all a laminate material. And so your weakness here is going to be your edge banding and the joints here from the center panel into the outside stile and rails. Next, we have a German manufactured, this is a lacquered laminate from Nobilia. And this is a laminate very similar to the Bellmont product, but it's got a lacquer on top of the laminate that my assumption going in is that that is going to help seal up the door from moisture. This also has a melamine back that then is edge banded with this laminate, and then that's lacquered. So one question that people often ask us if we talk about a melamine product is, I remember the melamine of the 90s, is this cabinet door going to perform like that? If you had a cabinet in the 90s with a melamine door, most of them all peeled. The glue and the technology has changed dramatically, but let's test even that to see how that performs if we soak this door in water for 24 hours. Next, we've got a stained door from Fabuwood Cabinets. They make great cabinets at more of a price point. And we're just going to test to see this solid beech stained door, is this going to perform better or worse than some of the other doors we've got? The failure points here are typically going to be this corner here, or some of the joints, or this one has a little bit of a ding in the corner, so we're going to see how that performs. And how well this performs, see if it swells at all. Next, we've got a beautiful painted door from Crystal Cabinets out of Minnesota. This is their Keyline series, so it's a thicker coat of paint, but it's a little bit of an older sample, and so it's had time for the expansion and contraction of the wood to crack a couple of these corners, so it may not perform as well as a brand new door. We'll find out. This is a MDF center and a paint grade material stile and rail. So let's examine these doors and see how they perform. First off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a micrometer and measure the thickness of the door so we can measure any minute change in terms of swelling, because that's important. A little bit of swelling now means over a long-term exposure to moisture, like often sink-based cabinet doors, it's going to mean significant damage to the door. So let's check this out. So I'm measuring the Bellmont door right at the joint between the stile and rail, and it's 19.4 millimeters thick. Let's immerse this one in water, and we'll check it again tomorrow after 24 hours. Next, we've got our lacquered laminate Nobilia cabinet door. And this one has a little bit of damage on one of the corners. It looks like this sample was dinged. So I'm going to measure it right at that corner, and then I'm going to measure it at another place in the door. So we can even measure, if a cabinet gets dinged, how much more susceptible to moisture is it? My Nobilia cabinet is 19.39 millimeters, and that's at the edge. And right where that corner was dinged, it's 19.32 millimeters. All right, we're going to immerse this in water, and then we'll check it tomorrow after 24 hours to see how it performs. Next, we've got our Fabuwood stained sample. We're going to measure it. The Fabuwood stained sample is 18.43 millimeters. So we're going to immerse this in water, and we'll check it out tomorrow. And last, we have Crystal Cabinets painted door. This door has finger jointed construction, so very solid, but we're going to see if this swells or what happens when this is immersed in water for 24 hours. I'm going to go ahead and measure it in a couple different places because this has got a pillowed front to it. Right at the corner, we're 16.91 millimeters. Then at full depth in the middle, we're 19.53 millimeters. So we're going to immerse this in water and see how it performs. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a bowl of water on top of these doors to hold them down, and then we'll check them out tomorrow. All right, I'm back 24 hours later, and I want to check out these cabinet doors to see which one performed the best in a 24-hour soak test. We're going to start with this Bellmont laminate door. This is a 5-piece laminate door that you've seen before. Previously, this measured in at 19.40 millimeters thick. Let's see what it measures in today. So to start with, before I measure it, you can see that there's some significant delamination right here. You can see significant delamination pretty much everywhere where we have a joint. So this 5-piece door is particularly vulnerable to water because there's just more joints for water to seep in. And you can see where the edge banding and the laminate come together, there can be a significant gap. And this is what my biggest fear is for a laminate door, is having the laminate surface delaminate from the substrate. And here it's not actually delaminating, the glue's not failing, the substrate is just swelling, and so it's pushing everything beyond the edge banding. So let's measure this door and see how it performed. This door measures in at 20.88 millimeters at this location. Move down, it's about 21 millimeters here. So it swelled significantly. There's some significant cupping here, and the drawer face here at the top really did not perform well as far as it just let the moisture get in the MDF material and everything swelled up. So our 5-piece laminate sample swelled almost 2 millimeters. We went from 19.4 to 22.08 or so. So a significant amount of swelling, more swelling than we saw when we just soak tested a solid piece of maple. All right, let's check out our lacquered laminate door sample and see how it performed. Now, remember, I was telling you this is a lacquered laminate, this is a super matte, and then we've got basically a melamine type material on the back. And a lot of people have a concern with considering a melamine cabinet door because they had relatives or they themselves had melamine doors in the 90s where almost universally we had issues with the melamine peeling after a few years. And I find the results of this door just on the surface really fascinating. So the construction of this door is we've got a substrate and then we've got essentially a super matte foil or a melamine on the substrate, and then on the sides here we have edge banding that matches the color of our super matte foil. Now, what's really interesting to see is the edge banding is where it failed. So you can see right here the edge banding is swollen. Here where we've got the foil that wraps into the melamine foil on the back, there's no swelling at all. At least that's what it appears to look like from just looking at it. Let's take our micrometer and measure it and see how it performed. So this is really fascinating. If you look at it and measure it in the center, it's essentially equivalent to the same width that it was previously. So, you know, varying a little bit by a couple of hundredth millimeters, which essentially it might have that tolerance anyway, so that's not significant. 19.41, last time I think it measured in at 19.40. However, on the side, that's significantly different. You can see the edge banding bond to the melamine or the super matte foil just didn't hold when subjected to a significant amount of water. So that measures in at 21.64 millimeters right there on the edge. And that varies a little bit, as high as 21.69, 73. So what we can see is our failure point on this door was the edge banding. That joint right there failed. The rest of the door performed really pretty well. Now, another thing to point out is once your melamine or your foil does get water underneath it, it becomes fragile, more fragile than the edge banding. So when the water got in there, between the edge banding and the foil, you ended up with the melamine starting to peel back and even crack. You know, the glue is still not delaminating. So we've really solved the glue problem. It's just that we've got so much moisture there, it's ruining the substrate and causing it to swell. Next, let's check out our stained door sample. What's happened with this stained door sample is kind of what I would expect. It's cupping. We've seen some swelling. We have a little couple of areas where the finish is cracked, and I can see that it's gonna damage it even more, but hasn't yet. We have a little bit of swelling here in the center panel, mostly around the corners, and the joints have started to pop just a tiny bit, but it actually performed pretty well. Let's check the measurement and see how much it swelled. So the thickness on this previously was 18.43. Here, it's 18.77. So pretty remarkable from a swelling perspective, not nearly as much as some of the MDF. Here it's 19.01, so maybe about a half a millimeter or so. This stained door performed significantly better than some of the MDF materials, only swelling about a half a millimeter in certain points. Our last sample is the white painted sample. So if you look at this on the surface, you can see that we've got a significant amount of cracking and water damage where there was cracks previously. I told you that this was a little bit of an older door sample, a couple years old, been banged up in the back seat of cars for a little bit. But the miter joints have increased the cracking, mostly from the outside edges, and those actually looked fairly tight yesterday when we were looking at them. But the biggest indications of damage are all where there are joints in the wood or there were scratches or cracking. We were 19.53 in the center of this door. Let's measure it and find out what we are now. If I measure the center of the door, I'm 19.67. That's pretty impressive considering how some of the other doors we have swelled. Let me measure it right on the corner. Now I'm getting 17.45. So it swelled more on the corner, and you can see that because yesterday you really couldn't see the finger joint, and you definitely couldn't see as much cracking. What I find really interesting about this painted door is it is an older door, and so there was some cracking. It's where the cracking was that there's a significant amount of damage. That's no surprise. What I find interesting is this product has a maple style and rail and an MDF center panel. I don't see hardly any swelling on this MDF center panel. It's all in the paint damage on the maple. The maple didn't swell that much, but we just see some significant damage in the joints and wherever there might have been a little bit of paint damage. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that educational and helpful as you think about your kitchen remodel. Please subscribe to our channel, check out our website for more helpful content about home remodeling.